Well, all right. Welcome to my bass workshop. I'm Basslightning, professional bassist, guitars and everything hard rock and metal and hard rock alternative. Yours truly with the Red Bull. All right, so the topic for this workshop, everything solo bass guitar, of course. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go through some of my methods and what I do. Obviously, I'm not going to have enough time to break down every little bit and piece of what I'm playing and explain it. And it's just, yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. But I can give you my concepts. The theory part's up to you. And learning where all the notes are, learning the scales, learning the chords, positioning, difference between the minor keys and the major, minor, pentatonic. That's all up to you. And there's a fly buzzing around me. Or is it a mosquito? I don't know yet, but it's buzzing around on my right, and now it's above me. Dive bomber. I think it's a dive bomber. We have a dive bomber. I got to get out the big gun, my fly swatter over there. All right, so anyways, so the main focus of this workshop is building progression. So on that piece that I just played you there, it is not a song skeleton. It is just a solo piece that I chose for example. It's not really a full song idea, if you will. It's there, but it's it's kind of just a song skeleton. I'm just kind of plucked it out of the cosmos in my catalog of never-ending instrumental stuff, and it's good for an example because it shows as you watched me perform that piece, you could see how the progressions build now and dynamics. So those are two very important things: progression building and dynamics. And what you should do whether you're just a beginner, intermediate, or if you're a full-time pro or just a part-time pro or whatever the case may be. I'm not trying to tell you how to, that my way is the only way. Absolutely not. But this is what's worked for me for a long time. I played professional bass since I was 14, and I'm over 50 years old, so you do the math. And I mean, I've never been passed on an audition. I've had a few projects not work out for various reasons, but my bass skills have always been above my guitar skills, just in that my experience is there. I know tons and tons and tons of material on the bass. I know a lot on guitar too, but I'm more focused on just originals on guitar. There's like a set list I have of like 45 covers I could do if I, practiced and warmed up with the lyrics and the sheet music or whatever. Obviously. But this isn't a workshop about me explaining my own skills and experience. I'm just saying that where I'm coming from and my points of view of what I'm instructing in my workshops is just, they're just methods and techniques and things that have worked for me over the years. That's all. That's the reason why I bring that up. It's not like I'm trying to toot my own horn or, hey, I'm just a nobody living in northern Vermont, man, who plays bass and guitar. So there you go. So I'm going to just do a few examples and I'll show you. It doesn't necessarily have to be that piece that I just performed, but if you look at that piece, and you go back and you look, you see how I build it, and it's the same way. Like I guess there's that fly again. That is a fly. Oh my, there he goes. He's gonna keep bothering me until I kill him. So there's a method to the madness. Basically, is the bottom line with all this stuff, and you have to look at what you're supposed to be doing. That's, if you look at why I bring up my opening piece to this workshop, is that it's a great example of progression building, dynamics, riffing, structure, phrasing, tempo, timing, everything. Everything that you could possibly explain, or whatever. Not every single technique, because I didn't do slap bass or hammer-ons or anything like that, but a lot of your basic concepts were in that piece. That's why I chose that. That was kind of an unnamed piece of music that I wrote quite a while ago. Never really did anything with it. So I said, you know what, I'll just bring that out and I'll just use it in the workshop today, because it's a perfect example of progression building, big time. And I can show you that more in that type of piece than I can in a cover song, because a cover song, you're just playing scripted parts. I mean, how much can I build unless I want to do some more riffing in certain sections? Of course, you can bring it in then. Obviously that's, but, without overplaying, and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, especially if you're being hired and you're in a cover band that's vocal orientated, and, make sure you do your parts. That's number one. Just play your parts, have a good attitude. Don't be an ego spaz causing issues every step of the way, because you'll just get kicked out and replaced, any of that kind of stuff. As a bassist, you're usually not the front man or the person running the band in most cases. In some cases you are. I ran a couple bands in the past, but it didn't mean that I'm more important than anybody else in the band. It just means that nobody's really going to kick you out because you're running the business end. Whoever runs a business end is the one who controls everything, because they're the one bringing in the money to the project. Cover bands to me are just, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't want to downplay. Everybody does. I'm glad that there's a lot of talent out there everywhere, locally, everywhere, on the entire planet, And I'm glad that people are bringing back music, especially after the pandemic that shut everything down. They're bringing back live music. Of course, go out and support local bands and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But in my own little world here, Darkanica, I control everything. I do what I want. It's virtual stage, so I'm doing either sit-down sessions, workshops like this on bass or guitar, or full live performances with bass and vocals and drums, or guitar, vocals, and drums. Like, that's my bag of tricks. And then I just bring out whatever my latest material that I'm working on, and present it via virtual stage on my YouTube channel, Basslightning 666, and on here, my Facebook page, Basslightning. And I also have MP3s out there on Reverb Nation and SoundCloud, of course, been out there for years. I have a couple sets on those platforms for just MP3 audio experience, and that's me doing all the instruments, full production, everything, and mixing and producing. My brother helped me a little bit with his Pro Tools system on some of the newer material, with remixing. So shout out to Gene Rice. He did help me on some of the final production, but he doesn't have a lot of extra time. He works ungodly hours at his job. He's got a family, so I don't expect him to take what little bit of spare time he has and work on my music. He has his own music as well. He's a great player on guitar and bass, just like me. He plays both. He doesn't do any vocal work. He's an instrumentalist, and that's fine. I do instrumentalist and vocal work. We're a little different in style and in what we offer. But if everybody was the same, it'd be a boring world, right? So, but yeah, check his stuff out on his Facebook page. It's great. And then the Rice Family Jams, that kind of stopped a while ago, but there are some videos out there, captured some of that, which I'm glad that I did. On my Facebook page, you got to go kind of far down. I haven't reshared it in a little while, but it's there. In the memories, reshares, and stuff like that. So now that I got all that out there, we can actually continue on with the workshop. So what I want to do is build a progression. And I'm just going to think of some examples. Just give me a second to figure something out here that I can use to show you progression building and dynamics. So Yeah, so, all right, so why don't we just we'll do something in E. So if I'm playing a progression in E, and it can be anything, it can be a cover song, playing with a band, or if I'm doing something solo here, or whatever I'm doing. So let's say we're just doing a groove. I'll do a groove in E. So why don't we do? Let's see. Maybe I can do some drums behind it. Just so. One, two, three. right, so as you can see right there, that was not previously rehearsed. I just made that up for as an example piece for this workshop for you. So there you go. So as you could see in that progression, I started out with just the basic groove in E minor. So, make sure you're sticking to minor triads unless you want to give that effect of changing modes. Where we go. You can switch to the major triads, but if you're in E minor, it just sounds better if you're sticking in the same mode. So turn around, I'm going down to C, So try to stay in the framework of the mode that you're in. Sometimes, and you've seen me do it, and I've explained it too, on guitar especially, sometimes I'll change the mode to change the whole vibe of the song. And it does work as long as you're looking at it in context ahead of time and realize what you're doing to the sound of the song, So, if I'm grooving an E minor as the main A section groove of that piece, which it was, stick to your minor triads. You're in E minor, so, but my point with kind of going over and explaining what I played there is to show you the comparison to what I'm thinking and concept and the progression building concept and dynamics. You notice the dynamics. I went in with the bass overdrive on the turnaround, and it just kind of made it a little meatier and kind of a little thinner, but dirtier. Then you bring it back into the full sound of just a straight, clean bass. That's another thing with dynamics. Tone ties in with dynamics as well, in most cases. Sometimes not, but so that's basically what. You can use different things like that. It's not just how hard you're striking the strings or how lightly you're striking the strings. It's also, what you're doing for tone, whether it's what kind of effects you're using. There's some different factors, and that kind of, and speaking of factor, that factors into the common sense about what you're playing and what you should be playing and what you shouldn't be playing. So that's another thing. So what I'm thinking is these strings are brand new. I just gave this bad boy a setup earlier, so did some bridge adjustment. I oiled the fretboard because it's a rosewood fretboard, and then put brand new thumpers on it. So it's probably, I'm gonna have to hit the tuner a few times here. That's not bad. Only one was a little bit out. One string, not bad. So yeah, so I mean, in concept, of course, I'm thinking theory, but you don't want to get so lost in theory that you're losing track of what you're supposed to be doing and not having good feel with what you're doing. And that's the most important thing, is having a good feel for your, whether you're on bass, guitar, or you're on saxophone, or drums, whatever it is. You have to have a good feel, and that's developed through practice, time, and having a natural knack for that. It goes back to that same concept I've been teaching forever, is taste can't be taught. That is something that cannot be taught in a school. I don't care what anybody says about it out there, anywhere. There's certain things. It's kind of like a race car driver, you know. You can't really teach them the instincts part of it. Well, you can't really teach a bass player the instincts part of it. That's something they have to learn on their own. And some guys or girls pick it up better right off the get-go. They just have it. Some people, it takes them years to develop it, you know. And that's just the way it is. Everybody's different. That's human nature with anything, really, you know. Myself, you know, I picked up bass at a young age. I had family members who were way older and more experienced than I was. I had already had a professional project out. I had my own band, Steel, that I formed back when I was a junior high into the first part of high school, and then my cousin's band kind of took me over, and they were already established 100+ shows a year, so I was into that for like 5 years and blah blah blah, and then it goes on and on and on. Right into college I was playing, you know, so I never stopped being a bass player professionally, like, ever. I mean, there were gaps when I wasn't playing in bands and I was just doing studio work or guitar work or whatever, like what I do here, studio hermit thing. But, you know, basically I've played in a lot of bands. I've played second in Jazz Nationals for MAU, on jazz bass down in Virginia, with the Mount Anthony Jazz Band. Placed 2 songwriter awards with Billboard magazine. I have 2 of those that I share with a songwriter. That was my bass work on that album. You know, honorable mentions, record contract type of thing that was offered through the work I did with that songwriter. That was years ago, and couldn't follow through because, you know, the front man had a job at the battery plant with my dad and other people. You know, he had a mortgage, kids, car payments. I mean, I can understand why he didn't want to go off and chase dreams. He had a family to support, you know. At that time, I didn't, so I didn't understand. I was ready to go. But, you know, but that's just, as you get older, you realize these things. Like, look, family's more important than chasing dreams. You know, take care of your family first, and you can kind of pursue your dreams at a lower level, part-time hobby basis, if you will, and you can still go out and play in professional bands and still do stuff like that, you know, just on a part-time level, and still get out there on stage and do what what I believe musicians are put on this earth to make music, not to bicker and talk trash about each other. We're made to be put on this earth to make music together or solo or whatever, you know. Like I always say, you know, politics drive people apart, music brings people together, like I said on another video, but I don't want to be redundant, keep repeating myself. But so on with the workshop. So the next thing I want to do is, I would say this would be a good turning point into riff selection. And we'll go back to the first piece I presented, the unnamed instrumental example. So I was grooving in E minor, so E minor mode. So. So what I'm doing here is I'm searching for something else that would have worked in there, but I'm also showing you the process of when I'm riff building. I'm thinking of different things that I can do, whether it's inversions, whether it's you know, a counterpoint, which I use a lot on guitar. I also use it on bass. You know, go down into the contra octave while I'm doing something else with the melody. So I could put something more progressive in there like that. But remember, when it goes back to what I just said earlier, taste can't be taught. Well, taste also needs to be there. You have to actually create things. Let me get a little more light on the subject here. Um, you have to actually create things that are, um, parts that make musical sense, and that, you need to really know. And again, it's really hard to teach, how do you have good taste? Now the light's blinding me, so I'm going to turn it up this way. How about that, huh? Right in the lookers, right in the lookers. And so it's really hard to show, okay, well, this is what I would do. And it's like, okay, well, this is what I would do, but it might not be what the other player's thinking. Like, well, I like this, and I'm going to do this type of riff. And that's fine, because that's freedom of expression. And as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, number one, if you are playing with a band, other people who are paying you or whatever, that's first. And then you can put some riffs in and some little tasty, licks, so that, yeah, you're kind of pleasing yourself a little bit, like you're putting a little bit of yourself in there. And again, that depends on the project and whoever's directing and the band leader. Usually they're not going to mind a few extra riffs if you put them in there, even if they're not in the original piece, as long as it's not too busy, overbearing, or throws the vocals off or anything like that. And that's where that taste thing comes in again. Every time I'm going to say that, because that is what it is. It has to be, done in a way that works with the arrangements. That's the big one, So I'll do a different progression here and show you how I build. So if I'm going, now you can see there, very simplistic little groove, playing an F and the key of F. And so what I did there was nothing, spectacular in terms of bringing in all kinds of, you know, you don't always want to throw in a bunch of stuff in there. I mean, and even with finger. That works better. You don't want to throw like a weird funk technique or something in there that just doesn't fit. And or some, that's another thing, is not just with, it goes in with taste, but if you're doing something that's not really a funk piece, you probably shouldn't do funk bass. I mean, you can sometimes, like the Spin Doctors stuff has a lot to do, like Two Princes. If you listen to that, that's a funk bass line all the way through there. However, you could play that bass line straight out with no funk, and it would have probably not the same effect, but it would still work, So that's just an example of like a cover song that you could do with two different types of bass techniques that would work. However, the original piece was done funk bass style, so you want to do funk bass in that. Same thing with like Chili Peppers stuff, obviously, Flea, everything is funk, just about every song with him. Though he's a great bass player and does a lot of good melodic stuff too. Um, it's just another example, I think, for cover music. So if I'm thinking of a riff for a song, and this goes back to building progressions, dynamics, and taste. I didn't put that in the title, but that's really kind of wrapped into this whole thing. And what controls it, like your little, you know, remote control analogy with the machine, controlling the machine. So if I'm taking, why don't I just do, so instead of something that with so many faster changes in it, I'll pick something more simplistic, then I can show you the progression building a little better. So let me see. I'll do something in A, I guess. So, right there, that's a good example. Now, see how I did a riff there? It was just a major scale. It's just a D major scale played backwards, walking down to the next key, which would be C, before I go back to the tonic of that section, which is A. So you see the timing thing. That's taste too. You don't want to overplay it. So as you're changing the progression. You don't want to do that. Even though it sounds cool, it doesn't really fit the groove of the progression. What you do want to do is something like this and that. I'm showing you what not to do there, So. See how that works a lot better than trying to do something super fast when the groove isn't really fast. Or to see these guys out there, and it's just like, it's some of the stuff, it sounds good, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great players out there, there's a lot of great talent, Mahini Day, Tal Wilkenfeld for the girls, and others, and obviously Steve Bailey, Victor Wooten, Jeff Berlin, respectively. I learned stuff from Jeff. He's a great academic type of bassist. But my main influences are, of course, Geddy Lee, John Paul Jones, Stanley Clarke have been my biggest three influencers my entire life. Yes, I started with Kiss, but no, Gene Simmons is not my idol bass player. But yeah, so I think that really it's just about presenting your work in the best way you know how to, and delivering your parts with good feel. And from an academic standpoint, make sure the right parts are there that you're supposed to be playing. You can add the frosting a little later on as you play with the group, and they're comfortable with you, you're comfortable with them. I'm not talking a chart reading gig where you're just out there one night, you're sight reading, get your pay, and you're gone. I'm talking about a band that plays together consistently, or certain groups of people that play together consistently all the time. You want to be looking for the academic end of it. Yes, it's a different mode of function, but you also want to be looking at the feel And the taste, yes, very important. And playing what you're supposed to be playing to make the band sound, and the songs that you're playing sound like the songs that they're supposed to sound like, because that's all the audience cares about. They don't care if you're a Berkeley educated musician and you can play arpeggios backwards, upside down, and blindfolded. They don't care. You know what I'm saying? They just want to hear the songs. That's it. And again, it depends on your demographics of your region that you're in and who you're playing for. If you're playing for an academic audience, sight reading, like I've done that, and yes, and of course you focus on that mode of function, you focus on your skills, and you just play those parts. Yes, of course. But in out in the performance world, there are many different um, demographics, different aspects depending on which region you're playing in, depending on the local marketing business of the entertainment in those areas, whether it's cover bands, original bands, dance rock bands, dance rock classics, country, blues, any of that kind of stuff. Heavy metal doesn't really sell a lot in the rural area states like this, so you might play once in a blue moon. You're not going to play that much. Classic rock, dance bands, dance rock classics, and country. Those two will sell. Blues does some, they work too, but not as much as classic rock, dance bands, and country bands. Big time. And really in any rural area. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, that'll work. New York, until you get around the big cities and you get more diversity. I've played down in Long Island and Boston. I've lived in Boston, lived in Long Island. I've played down, up and down all around Massachusetts and southern New York and northern New York, and Vermont, obviously. And it's, I've seen the difference in the requirement diversity of the establishments that are paying bands. You need to know this, and whoever's booking the shows should know this, whether you're using a management agency, booking agent, or you're doing it yourself or whatever. You need to know that, because you're not going to get hired back if you go there and you present something that's just not vibing with the audience and the people aren't spending the money. You're not going to get hired back. Doesn't matter how good you are. You can play those songs, prog rock and all this progressive stuff, and it's great, but if the audience doesn't jive with it, they don't like you, guess what? The manager's not going to care how good you are. Don't hire them back. Goodbye. It was nice meeting you. Yeah, you're a great player. Don't come back. So it's not just about being advanced in your own craft and what you're doing, learning as much as you can, but it's also being smart business-wise about what you're doing out there when you're presenting yourself as a professional entertainer, because we are entertainers. We're not just making music, we're connecting with people, and it's all part of that package. Like, look at Sammy Hagar versus David Lee Roth. Which one's the singer and which one's the entertainer? Do I need to explain that? Yes, David Lee Roth can sing, and his voice is the original sound of Van Halen, of course, but who's the singer? Who's the entertainer? I mean, now he's old, but he's still an entertainer. But I just it's just a great example. That's a prime example of what I'm talking about. But it's really about having the right tools for the job, and that's really about being diverse, especially as a bassist, a professional bassist. You're usually not in control of what's going on. You're just a sideman. Everybody's watching the singer or whoever's fronting the band. They're not even looking at you, really. Maybe a little bit, and they're jiving with the band, but you're not the center of the whole show. But you do need to play an important role in presenting your toolbox in a way that is professional, sounds good, you look good, you have a good vibe, have a good positive attitude, enjoy yourself, actually look like you're enjoying yourself helps. So you don't look like you're just trying to get it over with. That carries over to the audience too. And you don't want that kind of stuff. You want to just shut your personal life off. Doesn't matter what's going on at home. Doesn't matter what's going on with your woman, or if you're a woman, what's going on with your man, whatever. Don't bring that emotional stuff to the shows because it's just going to make it miserable, and it's not what it's supposed to be about. You're supposed to be having fun, Yes, you're supposed to be having a professional project, of course, and make that number one, but you're also supposed to be having fun. And if you're bringing your personal life into band rehearsals, out at gigs, and all that kind of stuff, you're making it not fun for everybody else in the band and the audience. So if you're going to take any advice from me besides your playing skills, take that advice. Believe me, I've done it for a long time, probably longer than some of you have been alive. And yeah, never, ever, ever bring your personal issues to a gig. Rehearsals, it's still bad. Not as bad as in public, out on stage, in front of people. Don't bring none of that stuff there. Do not ever do that. Because it makes you look bad. It makes you look unprofessional. And, you might get hired back, yeah. Or maybe not. I don't know. But, turn my drummer off here so I don't wear my portable 3-watt battery out. So anyways, I'm not trying to like preach or whatever, but that is a very important mindset. I've been out in the professional music world for a long time, and locally, regionally, whatever, and I don't care who's around here who's thinks there's some kind of big rock star or whatever. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter who you are, and that's it. That's the reality of it. So, when you're learning your skills and you're building your progressions, kind of to bring us back to our topic, you need to just keep in mind, number one, what are your song assignments? So you learn your songs, okay. If you're just doing stuff for your own gig or your own, your studio work and something that's for you, it's your music, then of course you have a lot more leeway in what you can do and what you can get away with. That's why I love being a studio hermit, because I can do whatever I want, and I present to people, and I have hundreds and hundreds of followers, not just on Facebook, but my YouTube channel, my Reverb Nations. I think it's around 300, maybe a little below 300-ish fans. They call them fans on Reverb Nation. SoundCloud, I don't remember. I don't go visit that very much. I got some. Facebook, I think I have 380. Yeah, something like that. So, or is it 381 or 3? I know I haven't checked it, but you can see right on my profile, how many followers I have. And so between that and my Reverb Nation, SoundCloud, and YouTube, that's a lot. That's like 1,000 people, because they're not all the same people on each of those platforms. They're all different people, basically. So basically I have 1,000 people watching my videos and listening to my MP3s at any given time. So that to me is a pretty good size audience, that I've been playing for years. Some of them are the same people. Some people are new that come in, whatever. And so when I'm doing these workshops or virtual stage performances, sit-down sessions, whatever it may be, song skeletons and all that, I'm presenting it as though I'm playing out there on stage with somebody. So what I'm doing here, don't think that I'm laid back or just, not taking this seriously because I'm here in my home studio and I feel safe. And, I've been out there in the trenches, man, a long time with a lot of different bands. So I know from both sides what that is like, and what to do in those situations, and so that's basically the reason why I'm telling you this stuff. It's, some people may know me and know this stuff anyways, but to those who don't know my history, don't know my experience, that's fine. I don't need to give you my life story and bore everybody, but it does give me what I feel gives me basis and credential to show workshops on my concepts and what I do, because it actually has worked for me in numerous professional projects. So I think that's validation enough in itself. I don't need to, pontificate, but, that's basically where it's at with that. I mean, that's why I feel as if what I'm saying and what I do on the bass and guitar are accurate in the professional environment, because I'm not playing my original stuff to try to get gigs. I'm not making a demo with my original Basslightning stuff to go out. I would do cover songs just like everybody else. I would do, my Ramblin' Man. I would do my, Driving and Crying, some of my 90s stuff, and maybe throw one original in out of 5 songs or something, something like that. That's how I would approach that, and I know it would work. I know I could book it. I know it would work. But at this point, the virtual stage seems to be enough for me right now. Done a few bands over the last, since the pandemic. I've done two bands. Um, Pete Young Blues Band. We did some shows and did some stuff there. Really cool. Pete's a great front man. And then I did, was it Paradox over in New York. So done 2 projects since the pandemic. And I think that it's the same concept. I've approached those projects the exact same way I've approached every other project in my entire life. And, you just need to look at your skills, number one, of course. What you're presenting on your instrument, how you're presenting yourself out there, is a reflection on you as a player, and that's what you need to do. And so I think that basically just work on your playing, learn the stuff. You can add the frosting later, as I always say. And I think that's basically, it'll make you a better rounded player if you do what I'm telling you here, and work on your just everything. I mean, start out with your major pentatonic, your minor pentatonic, know the differences. Major triads, minor triads, know the differences. Major scales, minor scales, know the differences. It's really just a changing of positioning. When notes, some of them are very similar. They might only be 2 notes apart or something. It helps to do some chart reading and brush yourself up with that. You don't have to be a chart reader and just look for sight reading gigs to be a good sight reader and use it to aid yourself in your playing. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. Is if I have a question on something, I read the chart and then I'll play through it and just kind of, okay, there we go. I might not have caught it by ear because I'm an ear player too, but then I found it on the notation, standard notation, that that was that part I was trying to figure out. And maybe it's too fast if you're trying to just learn it by ear. And in the original player, that you're trying to figure out some of the early Geddy Lee stuff, the bass solos, and some of that stuff is fast, so it helps to look at the sheet music, look at the triplets and the sixteenths and whatever it is he's doing in the accenting, and you can pick up the accenting listening by ear and looking at the stave and seeing what the notations are telling you. It's just another aid for you as a player to learn the different parts, whether it be a complex or 3-chord radio song, whatever. You can approach it the same way and get the same results if you use the same mental concept of part building, skills building, learn theory, obviously, inside and out as much as you possibly can. You're not going to learn it all. You never will. Anybody who thinks they know it all does not, believe me. And that's really the biggest thing, is learning to build yourself up as a versatile player, especially on bass. And if you're a guitarist, you need to be versatile on guitar too. I'm not as versatile on guitar as I am bass. I tried out I used to do some gigs on guitar back in the day. I did do a few things, where I would do a couple songs, 2-3 songs. I would take the rhythm guitarist's guitar, he'd take my bass, and we'd switch for a couple. It was really just for fun, but it actually sounded pretty good, and it gave a different sound to the band, even if it was just for 15 minutes. And it really helped the dynamics of the show, because my voice and my playing are completely different than theirs, especially when I take over on a lead mic and it changes the whole sound. And then we would go back to their voices and what we were doing on our normal stuff, and it really made it work dynamically and versatile wise, and versatility, and that's another thing you can do. You can switch it up and if you have more than one person that can sing in the band, you should utilize that, not just as like, I'm the front man or I'm the front woman and nobody else can sing. If somebody else is a good singer in the band, then use that, because it will give you a different sound, even if it's just for 2 songs or whatever, or 3 songs or half a set or 1 song, whatever it is. It will give you a different sound that will help the overall versatility and dynamics of your show, whatever show it is that you're presenting, whether it's a 3-hour show or a 4-hour show, 3 sets or 4 sets or whatever it may be. that would be my take on all of that. And the information I'm giving you is not something I'm just making up here in my studio Hermitville here. These are things I'm telling you from the real world that have worked for me time and time again in multiple projects all over the Northeast. So I'm not just making this stuff up out of the blue to make myself look good or whatever. I mean, it's or like to brag or whatever. I'm just trying to help other musicians who maybe don't have my experience level, or even if they do and they're just looking for some kind of different perspective, and share that information. And as far as the skills and all that go, that's up to you. You need to learn your craft and discipline yourself. And once you achieve at least a certain level of that, you're always going to be building onto that with the skills and all that. Of course, you're never going to be as good as you want to be. I don't think anybody is. If you are, then you're delusional, because you can always improve no matter what. Always, forever, So that's about it. I just wanted to do some insights. Wanted to show you some progression building, and you could see what I do. And I'll give you one last little bit of playing since I've been doing a lot of talking in this workshop. So let's say I'm doing something in D. So let's say I'm just doing a progression in D. Now, instead of just playing the basic progression, which is working off the minor third. So see how I built that, where I just started out with the basic groove working off the minor third. So, staying in the D, the key of D with the minor third, working off that as what I would call the pedal tone, because I'm working everything off that minor third groove. And so in building, on a G to G flat, on the turnaround, so, in case you haven't noticed, this is not a workshop 101 beginning playing bass. I'm assuming you already know how to play, so this is more like 103, kind of like with my guitar stuff. I'm not doing complete beginner stuff. I've stopped doing that a long time ago. If you need to know how to press the note with proper pluck the note enough, put enough pressure, make sure you're in the middle of the fret, in the middle to be in pitch. You can work the major third there, but this isn't really a beginning workshop. None of my workshops are beginner workshops. I don't know. I guess I could do that, but this is more like intermediate to advanced. With the stuff that I'm showing, I could show just advanced, but then it's no fun. It's only about that much of a percentage of people that'll actually appreciate it. So I try to keep it in line with what I'd be doing in a band or something like that, because then it's less solo bass, all look at me, and it's more of this is what I would do in concept. And this would work for you if you try similar type of things on the bass neck to play with a band, you know. Or if you're doing solo stuff, then it does apply to that, but it's a whole different mental concept. And, you know, again, another mode of function that, you know, you have the freedom to do whatever you want, basically. So, you know, like I said, just learn your theory, your basics, of course. Learn where all the notes are on the neck, you know what I'm saying? That's an A sharp, you know what I mean? That's a C sharp. That's a G. Guess what that is? F. There you go. So, you know, learn where all your notes are, because that's a very important thing, to know where all the notes are. And on guitar as well, or anything you're playing, fiddle or cello or stand up, you know, double bass, upright, whatever. You know, you got to know where all the notes are. If you don't know your neck, then it just makes you, I don't want to say it makes you not as good. I guess it makes it so that you're just guessing, and you don't want to be guessing and winging it. That only gets you so far, you know. So learn your neck, learn the basic theory concepts. Like I said, of course, that's your foundation. Learn that stuff first and pound on it until you actually know it. I did this for years, you know. I mean, it's not like I just, boom, okay, I'm playing, you know. I mean, you have to study and work on something to get better at it, and you know, it's just the way it is. I think I had a lot of natural talent to begin with, which helped just from listening to music since I was, you know, 5 years old, crawling around my parents' huge album collection with a Zenith stereo. That kind of thing, you know. It was back in the 70s, you know. I mean, and I feel old, but yeah. It just comes from years and years of listening, learning, applying it, and playing and doing everything you need to do to become a good bass player. I mean, or a guitarist, or whatever it is, drummer, whatever it is you're playing. It's the same thing. You need to work on your skills all the time. You never will stop learning, ever, you know. So learn as much as you can. If you get anything out of this workshop, that's what you need to get. Learn as much as you can about your instrument. Learn the basics first, obviously. Work your way up. Building blocks of knowledge, building blocks create success. Good attitude creates success. Having a natural feel cannot be taught, but you can develop it. If you don't have it right from the get-go, you can develop it over time. And with those final closing thoughts, I thank you all for joining my bass workshop. I am Basslightning, and until we meet again for another workshop performance, thank you for joining me. Let's close this out with something cool. How about that?